The courthouse had never been so quiet. The usual murmurs and shuffling of papers vanished the moment she walked in. 10-year-old Lily Mae Turner looked impossibly small in the doorway, swallowed by a blazer that clearly wasn't hers. Her hair was neatly brushed, parted down the middle, but her eyes told a story far older than her age. At her side padded a German shepherd with a powerful stride and a steady gaze. His name was Justice, and the air in the room changed the second he entered. Judge Raymond Holbrook leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Can someone explain?" But his voice trailed off as he watched Lily take her place at the witness stand. She didn't look at anyone. She kept her hand on Justice's head, drawing strength from him. Her fingers trembled, but her feet didn't move. Not once. "My name is Lily Mae Turner," she said, softly but firmly. "I'm here because everyone else is lying." A wave of discomfort spread through the courtroom. Lawyers shifted in their chairs. Jurors exchanged glances. A man in the audience, Earl Donovan, clean-shaven, well-dressed, with a practiced calm, raised an eyebrow, almost amused. But Lily didn't notice. Or maybe she just didn't care. She took a slow breath, locked eyes with Justice, and raised one finger. Not just a random gesture, a signal. One he knew by heart. Justice stood instantly. His body tensed with quiet purpose as he stepped away from Lily and began moving through the room. The bailiff hesitated, but the judge raised his hand to stop him. Something about the dog's movement made everyone hold their breath. Justice ignored the whispers, the tension, the eyes on him. He walked directly to Earl Donovan and stopped. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Justice growled. "Low, deep." Not violent, worse. It was the kind of sound that made your stomach drop. Earl's face stayed calm, but his hand twitched. Just barely. Just enough. Lily lifted her voice again, pointing at him now. "He was there the night of the fire. Justice remembers." Gasps echoed through the room. Judge Holbrook's gavel slammed against the bench, but no one really heard it. Everyone was staring at the girl and the dog who had just changed everything. What no one knew, not even Lily, was that this moment was only the spark, and the fire it would ignite had been waiting for years. Lily Mae's voice still echoed in the courtroom as the gavel rested on the judge's bench. The room was still, stunned by what had just happened. Some believed her. Others dismissed it as childish fantasy. But no one could deny the way Earl Donovan's fingers twitched when Justice growled. And no one could explain the weight in Lily's voice, not for a child. Judge Raymond Holbrook removed his glasses and stared at her longer than a judge ever should in silence. Not with judgment, with something closer to concern. Back on the stand, Lily stood frozen, her hand still resting on Justice's head. Her eyes weren't on Earl anymore. They were lost in memory. In the courtroom's cold silence, her mind drifted back to the night of the fire. It was late. Her mother had tucked her in, like always. She remembered the warmth of the blanket, the soft creak of the old floorboards, and Justice curled at her feet. Then, the smoke, the heat, the scream, and a voice outside the window, deep, angry, unmistakably male. She had tried to go back into the house, but Justice blocked her path, barking and pushing her with his body. She had cried and fought, begging him to let her go back inside, to get her mother. But he wouldn't. He herded her away from the flames, dragging her through the back fence as the house collapsed behind them. That night, Justice didn't just save her life. He buried a truth Lily had been trying to dig up ever since. She didn't know what Earl Donovan was doing there that night. She only knew he wasn't supposed to be. He was her mother's landlord, the kind of man who smiled in public but whispered threats when no one else was around. Lily had heard him arguing with her mother once, outside on the porch, something about missed payments, about not knowing her place. It wasn't until the fire that Lily realized he meant every word. Now, sitting in this courtroom, Surrounded by adults who didn't know whether to pity her or dismiss her, Lily felt smaller than ever. But she had Justice. And when she touched his ear gently, he looked up at her with the same eyes he had the night he pulled her from the fire. Eyes that said, "You're not alone." Judge Holbrook cleared his throat. "We'll take a short recess," he said, though his voice had lost its edge. As the courtroom began to stir, Lily stepped down slowly, Justice at her side. She didn't look at Earl Donovan again. She didn't need to. For the first time, it wasn't about what she saw, it was about what she remembered. And the closer she got to the truth, the more she began to wonder, what exactly had her mother been hiding? The courthouse hallway felt colder than the courtroom itself. As Lily Mae sat on the hard wooden bench, her feet dangling above the floor, the world around her blurred into murmurs and polished shoes. Lawyers passed her without a glance. Reporters whispered, trying not to be obvious. But Justice sat alert beside her, like a wall between her and everything too big to face. She reached out and scratched behind his ear, grounding herself in the only soul who had never lied to her. Her mind wandered again, not to the fire this time, but to the weeks before it. Her mother had been on edge. Doors were always locked. Conversations stopped when Lily entered the room. One night, she caught her mother packing a box in the middle of the kitchen. Lily had asked where they were going, and her mother had smiled too quickly. "Just in case," she had said. "Sometimes you have to be ready to leave when the world stops making sense." That box. Lily hadn't seen it since the fire. And now, sitting outside a courtroom that was supposed to be about justice, she realized something strange. No one had ever asked her what she saw that night. Not the police. Not the social worker. They had treated her like a broken thing. A victim. Not a witness. And suddenly, it wasn't just about remembering, it was about being heard. Through the glass doors, she could see Earl Donovan speaking to his attorney, a tall man in a navy suit with slicked back hair and a forced smile. Earl wasn't rattled. Not really. He was leaning back, arms folded, as if he still believed everything was under control. But Justice hadn't moved his gaze from him. His stare was fixed, burning, as if he could see past Earl's expression, into something darker, hidden beneath. Judge Holbrook soon re-entered the hallway, flanked by two aides. He paused when he saw Lily sitting quietly with her dog. For a moment, their eyes met. Something flickered in his, not doubt, but familiarity? He gave a small nod as if to say, "I'm watching. Don't stop." Then he disappeared into his chambers. Lily turned to Justice and whispered, "They think this is about a fire." Her voice was low, but steady. "But this is about secrets. Yours. Mine. Hers." She looked down at her own hands, small and pale, then closed them into fists. Her mother had tried to tell her something that last night. A name. A warning. But the smoke had stolen her voice before she could finish. And now Lily had to find the rest of the truth, before Earl Donovan buried it for good. The rain came that night like a warning, steady, cold, and unrelenting. Lily Mae sat by the window of the foster home, knees pulled to her chest, watching the water streak down the glass. Justice lay curled at her feet, though his ears remained alert, flicking with every distant rumble of thunder. The house was quiet. Too quiet. And for the first time in weeks, Lily could finally think. Really think. About the box. It had been taped shut, she remembered that clearly. A small cardboard box with a yellow sticker on the side that said, "Kitchen." But it wasn't filled with utensils or plates. No, it had papers, notebooks, old envelopes with names she didn't recognize. And something wrapped in cloth. Her mother had tucked it under the floorboard in the pantry the night before the fire. She had told Lily, "If anything happens, you take this and go." But after the fire, the pantry had been reduced to ashes. Firefighters said the floor collapsed. Investigators said there was nothing left. But Lily remembered exactly where the box had been. And she remembered one more thing: a man in a gray jacket standing near the ruins while the flames still smoked. He wasn't part of the fire crew. He didn't look at her. But he had a crowbar in one hand and a black bag in the other. Back then, she hadn't understood what she saw. But now, with each passing hour in that courtroom, the memory sharpened. She realized that the fire wasn't just a tragedy, it was a cover. And someone, maybe more than one person, had wanted that box gone. But the question that haunted her now was this: what had been inside it that was worth burning everything down? Justice stirred suddenly, lifting his head and growling low. Lily followed his eyes to the door. A silhouette appeared in the hallway, tall, broad shoulders, standing too still to be casual. The doorknob twisted slightly, but didn't turn. Then, just as suddenly, the shadow moved away. Lily didn't breathe until the footsteps faded completely. Her heart thundered in her chest. She knelt beside Justice, whispering into his fur. "They know I remember." He licked her hand once, solemn and steady. She closed her eyes, trembling. The courtroom wasn't the only place she was in danger now. Somewhere out there, someone was watching, and they weren't going to let her keep digging for long. The next morning arrived without peace. Lily Mae barely slept, haunted by the image of that shadow outside her door and the silence that followed. When she awoke, Justice was already sitting near the window, watching the street below with military focus. He hadn't barked. He hadn't left her side. But Lily could feel it. Something was shifting. And it wasn't just fear anymore, it was certainty. At the courthouse, she sat silently in the waiting area, her hands clenched in her lap. The prosecution was preparing to bring her back to the stand. They wanted to show the jury she was composed and credible. But Lily wasn't thinking about how she looked. She was thinking about the man in the gray jacket. She had seen him again, this time in a photograph. On the wall in the hallway outside the courtroom, there was a framed image from a local fundraiser held 3 months before the fire. In the background, behind the smiling faces of donors and politicians, stood a man, broad frame, gray jacket, face half turned to the camera. Lily froze when she saw it. Her breath caught in her throat. She knew that stance, that silhouette. That was him. She called Justice closer and pointed at the picture. "Do you see him?" she whispered. Justice looked, then growled, low and soft, the same way he had in the courtroom. It wasn't just a memory anymore. It was a lead. That man wasn't random. He was connected. And somehow, so was Earl Donovan. The fundraiser had been for a housing development project, the same one Donovan had been pushing. The same one Lily's mother refused to sign off on. As the bailiff called her name, Lily stood slowly, her legs trembling but her eyes sharp. The courtroom was full again, tension buzzing like static. Earl Donovan didn't even look at her this time, but that told her more than words ever could. She wasn't just a child anymore in their eyes. She was a threat. And threats, she knew, had a way of disappearing if no one paid attention. She walked to the witness stand, hand resting once again on Justice's head. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. But inside, the pieces were starting to come together. A fire, a missing box, a mysterious man, and a mother who had died knowing too much. What Lily didn't realize was that someone in that very room was watching her every move, and they were already deciding what needed to be done next. The courtroom air felt thicker than usual. As Lily Mae sat on the stand, the prosecutor asked her gentle questions, rehearsed, careful, designed to make her appear brave, but not too bold. Yet no matter how softly they tried to wrap her story in legal language, the truth clawed its way through. Her voice shook, not from fear, but from memory. And with every word, Justice stood guard, never blinking, as if he knew the danger wasn't over. After she stepped down, Judge Raymond Holbrook called for a lunch recess. Lily didn't speak. She walked straight past the reporters and cameras, straight out of the courthouse, and down the block to a small bench under an old oak tree. She sat with Justice at her feet and pulled a folded note from her pocket, one she had never shown anyone. It was found in her backpack the day after the fire, crumpled and scorched, but still legible. Her mother's handwriting. Just one line. "If something happens to me, don't trust anyone wearing gray." She had read it 100 times. Maybe more. But today, under the weight of everything she'd seen, it felt heavier than ever. Gray jacket. Gray suits. Gray silence. Her mother had known. And she had tried to warn Lily the only way she could. Not with a scream, not with a name, but with a color. It was a code for corruption. A code for danger. Lily turned to Justice. "She knew they were coming," she whispered. Justice let out a quiet huff, resting his head on her knee. In that moment, Lily realized something terrifying. The fire wasn't meant to scare them. It was meant to erase her mother. To remove her, and everything she knew, from the world, permanently. And Lily was never supposed to survive it. Her fingers curled around the note until it crumpled tighter in her palm. She looked up at the courthouse building, towering above her like a wall she had to break through. But how? She had no physical evidence. No names. Only memories. And a dog that couldn't speak, but remembered everything. If she wanted to bring down whoever did this, she needed more than truth. She needed proof. As the courthouse bell chimed the end of recess, Lily stood slowly. A plan was forming. A risky one. She would go back to the ruins of her old house. She had to. Whatever her mother hid, maybe it wasn't all destroyed. Maybe something had survived. Something the fire missed. But she would need to go at night, alone. Because now, even daylight didn't feel safe. The road to the old house was silent, overgrown, and half forgotten, like a wound the town refused to look at. Lily Mae stood on the edge of the burned property as the last traces of daylight sank behind the hills. The skeleton of the house remained, blackened beams and collapsed walls surrounded by wild grass and silence. It smelled faintly of ash, even now. Justice stayed close, his body tense, ears up. He didn't like being back here. Lily didn't either. But something was calling her. She stepped carefully through what had once been the kitchen, now a graveyard of scorched tile and twisted metal. Her flashlight flickered with weak batteries, casting trembling shadows against the broken walls. Every step brought a memory. Her mother at the stove. The sound of her laugh. The crackling of the fire. Lily stopped near the pantry door, or what was left of it. This was where the box had been hidden. Right beneath the floorboards. She knelt, brushing away debris with her sleeves, heart pounding so loud it drowned out the night. Justice stood guard behind her, watching the tree line. She pulled at the loose boards, the ones her mother had pried open once before. At first, nothing. Just ash, soot, nails. Then her fingers struck something harder. Not wood. Not metal. Plastic. Melted at the edges, but intact. A corner of something buried. Lily dug faster, not caring that her hands were getting scraped. She pulled it free, a fireproof document pouch, blackened but sealed. Her breath caught. Her mother had hidden it deep, where the fire couldn't reach. She held it in her lap, staring at it like it might burn her just by being touched. Inside, something shifted. Paper. Maybe more. Maybe everything. But before she could unzip it, Justice growled. It was a sound she'd learned to trust. Low, quiet, serious. She froze. Somewhere beyond the trees, dry leaves rustled. Not wind. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Watching. She turned off her flashlight. Her eyes strained in the dark, her breath caught in her chest. Whoever it was, they weren't coming to help. and they weren't surprised she was here. She clutched the pouch to her chest, backed up slowly. "Let's go," she whispered. Justice didn't need to be told twice. He moved behind her like a shadow, ready to protect. As they slipped out through the side of the ruins, the figure remained in the trees, watching, waiting. They had come for the same thing Lily now held in her hands, but they were too late. She had it. Now she just had to live long enough to open it. Back at the foster home, Lily Mae locked the bedroom door behind her and pulled the curtains shut. Justice paced the room, still alert, ears twitching with every sound outside. She sat on the floor, the fireproof pouch in her lap, hands shaking. Part of her was afraid to open it, not because of what might be inside, but because of what it could mean. Truth always came with a price. And deep down, Lily knew, this truth might burn more than the fire ever did. She unzipped the pouch slowly. The smell of smoke wafted up, clinging to the papers within like a memory. There were photographs, some faded, some recent, and a bundle of documents sealed in plastic. At the bottom, folded in half, was a letter addressed to Lily in her mother's handwriting. She didn't open that yet. Her eyes were pulled first to a photograph, her mother standing beside Earl Donovan, smiling. The image made her stomach twist. Her mother looked uncomfortable, even though she was smiling. Earl, on the other hand, looked proud, like he had won something. On the back of the photo was a date, March 9th, 2 months before the fire. Below it, in her mother's handwriting, was a single sentence. "He offered money. I said no." Lily sifted through the rest quickly. Property deeds. A land contract. And at the bottom, a signed agreement showing her mother's legal refusal to sell the land to Donovan's development company. It wasn't just a personal fight. It was a legal war. Her mother had been the only holdout. And now, she was gone. It wasn't a fire. It was a message. She opened the letter last. Her mother's handwriting wavered with fear. "If you're reading this, it means they silenced me. But you have what they couldn't destroy. Don't let them take it again. Trust no one. Not even the ones who say they're protecting you. Find the journalist. Look for the name, Thomas Graves." Lily's heart pounded. The name meant nothing to her, yet. But it was a start. A lead. Something solid in a world of whispers. She looked down at Justice, who stared back as if to say, "We keep going." But someone else knew she had taken the pouch. She felt it. And whoever was watching in the trees, they wouldn't wait long before making their next move. The next morning, Lily Mae sat in the back of the courthouse once again, clutching the envelope of documents hidden deep in her backpack. The courtroom noise faded into a low hum. None of it mattered. Not the lawyers. Not the pacing of reporters outside. Her mind was locked on one name, Thomas Graves. She didn't know who he was, or if he was even still alive, but her mother had trusted him enough to write his name with her final words. That had to mean something. She waited until recess to slip out the side door with Justice, heading straight to the public library down the street. The librarian, an older woman with sharp eyes and soft hands, didn't ask questions. Lily sat at a corner computer and typed in the name, Thomas Graves, journalist. A few results popped up. The most recent was a 5-year-old article titled, "Corruption in County Development Contracts." The byline read, Thomas Graves, investigative reporter, retired. There was an email address at the bottom, almost forgotten. Lily copied it down and slipped it into her pocket. She didn't know what she would say. She just knew she had to try. If this man had written about the same company Earl Donovan worked for, maybe he already knew part of the story. Maybe he was one of the last people left who could help her put the pieces together. And maybe, just maybe, he had been watching from a distance all along. Back at the foster house that evening, Lily used a borrowed tablet to send the message. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing. My name is Lily Mae Turner. My mother was Clara Turner. I think you knew her. I have documents she left behind, and I'm in danger. Please help me." She hit send and stared at the screen, waiting. Justice sat beside her, tail twitching, eyes fixed on the window like always. The silence stretched. No reply. Not yet. But somewhere in her heart, Lily believed the message would reach him, if he was still out there. That night, she couldn't sleep. The house groaned with old pipes and distant footsteps. But just past midnight, the tablet buzzed. A single email lit up the screen. "Where are you? Do not talk to the police. Do not show anyone what you have. I'll come to you. TG." Lily's breath caught in her throat. He was real. He was alive. And he knew. She showed the screen to Justice. The dog let out a soft growl, not a warning, but a reaction. Someone else knew too. Someone who had been trying to stop this for years. Downstairs, the front porch creaked. Too slow to be the wind. Too late for a visitor. Lily froze, the tablet still in her lap. Someone was outside. And this time, they weren't watching. They were coming. The footsteps outside the house grew louder, slow, deliberate, pacing across the porch like someone deciding whether to knock or force their way in. Lily Mae held her breath, clutching the tablet and backing into the corner of her room. Justice stood in front of her, stiff as stone, every muscle on alert. He didn't bark. He waited. That's what made it more terrifying. He knew this wasn't a stranger passing by. Whoever was out there was looking for them. The doorknob downstairs rattled. Once. Then again. This time harder. Lily's heart pounded in her ears. She grabbed the envelope from her backpack, clutching it tight against her chest. There was no time to think, only react. Justice turned to her briefly, then trotted to the door and stood guard. It was almost like he was saying, "You run. I'll handle the rest." But Lily couldn't leave him. She slipped across the room and opened the closet door, crawling inside with the tablet and the documents. It was tight, dark, and filled with dust, but she could still hear everything. The front door creaking open. Heavy boots on the floorboards. No one called her name. No one asked if anyone was home. Whoever they weren't here to talk. They were here to take something or someone. A thud. A crash. A muffled growl. Then the sound that made her blood run cold, a sharp yelp from Justice. It was quick, but real. Lily shot out of the closet before she could stop herself, flying down the hallway. She turned the corner and saw him. A man in black, face covered, wrestling with Justice near the base of the stairs. Without thinking, Lily screamed. Loud. Raw. It was the kind of sound that demanded attention. The kind that could wake neighbors. The man froze for a split second, just long enough for Justice to break free and lunge. The struggle knocked over a lamp, shattering glass across the floor. The man cursed, shoved the dog off with his forearm, and bolted through the front door. By the time Lily reached the porch, he was gone, swallowed by the night. But her scream had worked. A light flicked on in the neighbor's house across the street. A phone call was probably already being made. She knelt beside Justice, her fingers trembling as she ran them through his fur. He was okay. Bruised, shaken, but okay. And now, there was no denying it. This wasn't just about intimidation anymore. They were trying to silence her. Erase the last witness, just like they had done to her mother. Lily looked down at the documents in her lap, now creased and smudged from the chaos. "We need to disappear," she whispered, "before they find a way to finish what they started." By morning, Lily Mae was gone. No one at the foster home knew where she had gone or how she had slipped out without a trace. But she had planned it during the night, while Justice lay aoscu lado se recuperando. She waited until just before dawn, when the streets were still quiet and the city hadn't fully awakened. The documents were hidden in her backpack, the tablet tucked safely inside her coat, and the only thing she left behind was a note on her pillow. "Please don't try to find me. I'm not running away. I'm running toward something." She took the bus to the edge of town, paying in cash. She'd memorized the schedule days ago, just in case. Her destination wasn't clear, but she knew she couldn't stay in the open. Not while someone was actively trying to silence her. She wore a hoodie that hid her face, kept her head down, and let Justice sit close by with his service dog vest, something her mother had trained him to wear in public, long before the fire. Lily used a public library miles away to check her email. Thomas Graves hadn't written again, but she hadn't expected him to. If he was everything her mother believed, he was moving carefully, like a man who had been hunted before. She sent him one more message. "They came to the house. I have the documents. Where can we meet?" That night, she stayed in a run-down motel near the county line, paying cash again. She placed the chair against the door and let Justice rest by the window. Outside, headlights passed every few minutes, and Lily jumped at every engine. She didn't feel like a kid anymore. She felt like prey. The documents were still untouched in her bag. Part of her was too afraid to open them again. Not because of what they said, but because of what they confirmed. She sat on the edge of the bed, watching Justice breathe. "What if we're the last ones left who care?" she asked aloud. The silence answered for her. But she wasn't giving up. Not now. Not after what Justice had done to protect her. Not after what her mother had risked to hide the truth. Somewhere out there, Thomas Graves was waiting. And if she could find him before they did, maybe, just maybe, she could finally finish what her mother started. The email came just before sunrise. Thomas Graves had finally replied. The message was short, rushed, almost paranoid in tone. "Bus station. 9 a.m. North Bench. Don't talk to anyone. Don't bring a phone." Lily Mae read it twice, then a third time. Her hands trembled, not from fear this time, but from urgency. This was it. The meeting her mother had hoped for. Justice stood as she grabbed her backpack, already alert, as if sensing they were stepping into something bigger. The bus station was gray, tired, and half empty, just like the people who moved through it. Lily scanned every face, her heart pounding. Was this a trap? Was he even real? Then she saw him, a man in his 60s, wearing a brown coat with frayed cuffs, a hat pulled low over sunken eyes. He sat on the far bench, alone, flipping through a worn notebook. He looked up, just once, and nodded. That was the sign. Lily approached cautiously. "Thomas?" she whispered. He didn't look at her. He didn't smile. Just murmured, "Keep your voice down. Sit. Let the dog stay close." She obeyed. He flipped to a blank page and began writing rapidly. Then he tore it out and handed it to her. "They're listening. Always. Don't say names out loud. Show me what you have." She handed over the pouch, her fingers reluctant to let go. Thomas opened it, his face pale but focused. As he read, his lips tightened. The documents meant something to him, more than she expected. He pulled out the photo of Earl Donovan with her mother and stared at it for a long time. "I told her to leave town," he finally muttered under his breath. "She said she couldn't. Said you were too young to understand why." Lily swallowed hard. "Why what?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Thomas glanced around the station. "Because your mother wasn't just fighting Earl Donovan. She was protecting something much older. A case that was buried. People that were bought. She kept digging after I stopped." He folded the documents back up and leaned in closer. "You're in more danger than you know, Lily. This doesn't just threaten a businessman, This threatens half the county's power structure." Justice stood up suddenly, ears forward. Thomas's eyes narrowed. "They're close." He stood, pocketed the envelope, and handed Lily another note. "Don't go back to the motel. Don't go to court. Meet me tonight. Old Train Yard. 11:30. Then, without another word, he vanished into the crowd like a ghost fading into fog. Lily sat frozen for a moment, heart pounding, until Justice nudged her hand. There was no turning back now. Whatever her mother had started had never been more alive. The old train yard was colder than Lily Mae expected. Rusted rails stretched into the darkness like veins, broken and forgotten, surrounded by metal skeletons of abandoned cars. The moonlight barely reached the ground. Justice walked ahead, nose low, tail stiff. It was 11:28 p.m. Thomas Graves was late. Or worse, someone else had gotten to him first. Lily crouched behind a metal crate near the yard center, clutching her backpack. Every sound, wind against corrugated steel, a distant train horn, creaking bolts, made her flinch. She looked around, hoping, praying for movement. Her breath formed clouds in the cold air. Then, a figure appeared between two cars. Same coat, same hat. Thomas. He moved with urgency, his steps uneven. When he reached her, she saw blood on his forehead, a fresh cut above the brow. "They followed me," he hissed. "I lost them near the bridge, but not for long. They're watching every move you make now. You were right not to trust anyone." He pulled the envelope from his coat, added a new folder to it, and handed it to her. "This is the last piece." Lily opened the folder and saw something that didn't make sense at first. A list of names. Judges, lawyers, city officials, contractors. Some were familiar. Others weren't. But one name stopped her cold. Raymond Holbrook, the very judge presiding over Earl Donovan's case. Her blood ran cold. "He's one of them?" she whispered. Thomas nodded grimly. "He helped bury the land fraud 20 years ago. Your mother tried to expose him. That's why she died." Before Lily could respond, Justice let out a growl so deep it seemed to shake the ground beneath them. Thomas looked over his shoulder. "Run," he said. "Now." A dark SUV screeched around the far corner of the yard, headlights off, tires crushing gravel. Two figures jumped out, sprinting toward them. Thomas pushed Lily behind the crate and pulled something small and silver from his coat, a flare gun. He fired it straight into the air. The red burst lit up the night sky like a bloodstain. The attackers hesitated, just for a second, enough for Lily and Justice to break into a run. Behind her, Thomas shouted, "Go! Don't stop until you reach the river road." Lily didn't look back. She couldn't. She just ran, heart pounding, Justice at her side, the sound of footsteps chasing them into the dark. And in that moment, she realized the only way to end this was to expose them all. The wind burned against Lily Mae's cheeks as she ran, the cold air slicing through her lungs like glass. Justice stayed at her side, silent and swift, his body low to the ground, ears pinned back. Gravel and broken glass crunched underfoot as they sprinted down the abandoned service road that led away from the train yard. Behind them, the flare still burned faintly in the sky, a red warning to anyone watching. She's still alive. Her legs ached, her backpack slammed against her spine with every step, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Thomas Graves had stayed behind, and she didn't know if he was still breathing. What she did know was that in her hands, pressed tight against her chest, was something far more dangerous than any gun. The names. Proof. Signed papers. Connections. The entire map of the network that had burned her life to the ground. They reached the edge of the woods that bordered the river road, just like Thomas had said. It was quieter here, shielded by trees and darkness. Lily collapsed behind a fallen log, gasping for breath. Her fingers were numb, but she forced them to unzip the folder again. She needed to see it, needed to be sure this wasn't just a nightmare spun by fear. But there it was, Judge Raymond Holbrook's signature, right next to Earl Donovan's, on a land transfer dated 17 years ago. A deal made before Lily was even born. Justice nudged her shoulder, whining. Lily looked up and saw headlights in the distance, not approaching, but circling. They were searching the back roads now. The silence had become dangerous. No sirens. No radios. Just engines in the dark. These weren't cops. These were cleaners. The kind who erased witnesses. Just like they erased her mother. She stuffed the folder back into her bag and stood slowly. Her legs wobbled, but Justice steadied her. "We need help," she whispered, "but not the kind that wears a badge." Her mother had warned her not to trust uniforms, and tonight she finally understood why. They weren't protecting the law. They were protecting the lie. Then, a rustle in the woods. Not far. Not small. Lily's body tensed as she turned, only to see an old pickup truck parked just off the dirt trail, headlights off. A figure stepped out. At first, she couldn't see his face, but then the man raised both hands slowly and said, "I'm with Graves. He sent me to get you." Lily didn't move. She looked at Justice. The dog didn't growl, but he didn't relax either. She had 1 second to decide, trust this stranger or disappear into the trees. Lily Mae didn't speak. She studied the man by the truck with the kind of silence that wasn't fear. It was calculation. He looked to be in his 50s, with a weathered face, sunken eyes, and a rough denim jacket that had seen too many winters. His voice was calm, but firm. "Name's Cal McBride. I worked cases with Thomas. I helped your mother once, a long time ago." Lily glanced at Justice, who still stood tense but hadn't growled. That was the only reason she stepped forward. The drive was quiet, tense, and winding through backroads Lily didn't recognize. Cal kept one hand on the wheel, the other near a worn leather satchel on the seat beside him. "I know what you've got in that backpack," he finally said. "And if even half of it's what I think it is, they'll do anything to get it back." Lily didn't respond, just held her bag tighter. She couldn't tell if this man was a savior or just another piece in a game too old for her to understand. They arrived at a secluded cabin deep in the woods. No cell towers. No streetlights. No sounds but wind and creaking pine. Cal led her inside quickly and locked the door behind them with 3 deadbolts. "You'll be safe here, for a little while." The cabin was cluttered with old maps, newspaper clippings, and a wall covered in pinned photographs connected by red string. Faces, dates, property lines. And in the center, Earl Donovan and Judge Holbrook. Lily stepped closer to the wall, stunned. Cal joined her. "We've been tracking the land fraud case since '07. Your mother was the only one brave enough to take it to court. She brought it to Graves. And when things got hot, she backed out, not because she was scared, but because she had you. She knew they wouldn't just ruin her. They'd erase her." His voice broke slightly. "She paid the price anyway." She reached into her bag and pulled out the newest folder Thomas had given her. Cal scanned the documents, whistling low. "This is it. This is the nail in the coffin. These signatures, these payouts," he looked at her, eyes sharp now. "With this, we can end them. But we have to move fast. If they find out you're here, we won't make it to morning." Justice barked suddenly, one loud warning. Cal moved to the window, pulling a curtain aside. In the distance, 2 faint headlights flickered through the trees. "Damn," he muttered. "We don't have time." He turned to Lily. "We go tonight. To the press. To a judge outside their circle. We go all the way, or we don't go at all." Lily looked at Justice. Her answer came not from her mouth, but from her eyes. She was ready. The table in the middle of the cabin was covered in documents, pages that could destroy powerful lives. Lily Mae, Cal, and Justice sat in silence, the only light coming from an old oil lamp that flickered with each gust of wind. The air smelled of dust, metal, and firewood. Each document revealed a deeper layer of corruption: land deals, bribes, sealed court records. Everything led to the same conclusion: this wasn't just about her mother. It was about an entire system built on lies. Cal reached into a drawer and pulled out a small flash drive. His hands were shaking slightly. "Your mom recorded everything," he said. "Meetings, phone calls, threats." She knew they were closing in, so she backed up the truth, in case something happened. Lily's heart sank. Hearing her mother's voice again, after everything, would hurt more than anything. But those recordings were their most powerful weapon. A noise outside shattered the stillness, a branch breaking. Then another. Cal moved fast, snuffing out the lamp. Justice growled low and steady, his body tense. "They found us," Cal whispered. "Maybe they tracked graves, or maybe someone in that courthouse tipped them off." Lily grabbed her backpack, hugging it tightly. "You said we were leaving tonight," she said. "So let's go." Cal nodded. "There's an old tunnel behind the well. Leads to a collapsed barn about a half-mile out. I stashed a car there. It's clean, no plates." He looked her in the eyes. "Once we go, there's no coming back. When this goes public, they'll all fall. But they'll come after us, too." His voice dropped. "You'll never be safe again. Not truly." Lily glanced down at Justice. The dog moved beside her and pressed his head gently against her arm, like he was giving her permission. Her voice didn't tremble. "They already took everything from me. My home, my mom, my childhood. I'm not running anymore. I'm finishing this." Cal gave a quiet, solemn nod, a moment of respect. "Your mother would be damn proud of you." With the documents hidden under Cal's coat and Lily's backpack clutched tight, they slipped out the back door and into the night. Behind them, a black SUV rolled to a stop in front of the cabin. 3 men stepped out, slow, deliberate, armed. But it was too late. The truth was no longer locked away in silence. It had a name, a voice, and now it had legs. The tunnel behind the old well was damp, narrow, and smelled like mold and rust. Lily Mae crouched low as she followed Cal through the darkness, the beam of his flashlight bouncing against dirt walls and spiderwebs. Justice moved between them, silent but alert, his paws barely making a sound. Every step forward felt like walking into history. Her mother's, her town's, and now her own. They emerged in the ruins of an old barn, the roof half collapsed, beams rotted with time. Hidden beneath a tarp in the corner was a battered green pickup truck. Cal threw the tarp off and handed Lily the keys. "If I don't make it out, you drive straight to the next county. There's a radio station in Millersfield. Ask for a woman named Dana Morgan. She's been waiting years for this kind of proof." Lily didn't argue. She knew time was running out, and so was luck. The engine started on the 3rd try, coughing to life like something waking from the dead. Cal tossed the flash drive into Lily's lap. "Everything's on there. The audio, the names, even the judge's backdoor deals. Once this hits the air, they won't be able to hide behind their titles anymore." Lily tucked it into her backpack, wrapping it in her mother's scarf, the last thing she had left of her. But before they could pull out, headlights appeared in the distance. Not 1 pair, 3. The dark SUVs were coming fast, tires crunching over gravel, no sirens, no words. Just speed. Cal pulled a pistol from under the seat, his voice low and sharp. "We split. I'll lead them down the ridge trail. You go north, no matter what. Don't look back." Don't stop. Lily's throat tightened. What if they? They won't catch me, he said. And if they do, it's not me they want. It's you. The vehicle screeched to a halt as Cal threw the truck into gear and tore out of the barn in a wide arc, kicking up a cloud of dirt and dust. Lily, in the second truck, waited just long enough to see two SUVs follow him. The third paused, scanning, searching. She didn't wait. She slammed her foot on the gas. Justice braced in the passenger seat, and they tore down the northern trail toward Millersfield. Every bump on the road made her grip the wheel tighter. Every curve felt like it could be her last. But she kept going. Because her mother had trusted her. Because Graves had risked everything. Because Cal had stayed behind. And because now, the truth wasn't just something she carried, it was something she was willing to die for. The road to Millersfield was long, cracked, and barely lit by the truck's flickering headlights. Lily Mae gripped the wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Justice sat beside her, eyes on the road like a second pair of instincts. She hadn't seen any headlights behind her in over 20 minutes, but that didn't mean they were gone. It just meant they were hunting smarter now. She could feel it in her chest, that tightening sensation that something was coming. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the weight of the flash drive tucked under her coat. On that small piece of metal lived voices, confessions, and names powerful enough to collapse a courthouse. If she made it to Dana Morgan, the journalist Cal had mentioned, it would all come crashing down. But if they caught her before that, it would all disappear. She reached the city limits of Millersfield just after 3 a.m. The streets were empty, the sky turning pale gray with the first hints of morning. Following Cal's directions, she parked the truck behind a grocery store and continued on foot, Justice leading the way. Her heart pounded with each step. They approached a narrow alley, and at the end of it, a neon sign flickered, WMRF radio, 91.2 FM. She'd made it. Lily pressed the buzzer at the side door. Nothing. She pressed again, harder this time. Finally, the door creaked open and a woman appeared, mid-40s, messy bun, tired eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked cautiously. "Are you Dana Morgan?" Lily asked. The woman stiffened. "Who's asking?" Lily reached into her coat and pulled out the flash drive. "I'm Lily Mae Turner. My mom was Clara Turner. Cal McBride sent me." For a moment, Dana just stared at her. Then her expression changed, from doubt to disbelief, then to something close to fear. She stepped aside. "Get in. Now." Lily and Justice rushed inside as Dana bolted the door behind them. "You have no idea what you just stepped into," she muttered. "I've been waiting years for someone to bring this forward. But if they know you're here, they'll burn this whole city to the ground to stop it." Lily placed the flash drive on the table. "Then let's make it so everyone hears it before they get the chance." Dana looked at her, really looked at her, and nodded. "Let's end this." As she loaded the files into the system, Lily leaned against the wall, Justice at her feet. The sun was rising outside. For the first time in a long time, hope felt real. But so did danger, and it hadn't given up yet. The studio lights flickered as Dana Morgan loaded the last audio file into the system. Her hands were steady, but her eyes betrayed the tension boiling beneath the surface. Lily Mae sat nearby, Justice curled up beside her, though still wide-eyed and watchful. The air smelled like burnt coffee and printer ink, and the hum of old broadcasting equipment filled the silence like a warning. At exactly 5:07 a.m., Dana hit go. The radio crackled to life across 3 counties. First came her voice, calm, professional. "This is Dana Morgan, and what you're about to hear may shake this town to its core." Then, Clara Turner's voice echoed through the speakers. It was soft, strained, terrified. "They want my land. They want silence. Judge Holbrook signed the papers. Donovan delivered the threats. If anything happens to me, my daughter must find graves. The audio played for nearly 7 minutes, confession after confession. Snippets of phone calls. Secret recordings. Proof of decades-long fraud and intimidation. The town woke up to the sound of its own corruption. Phones rang. Sirens howled. And within the hour, every newsroom in the state was flooding with calls. The truth wasn't just out, it was everywhere. But with the light came fire. At 6:22 a.m., a black SUV crashed through the station's side gate. Dana barely had time to shut down the feed before armed men stormed the building. Lily had already grabbed the flash drive and slipped out the back with Justice. They ran through the alley, heart pounding, lungs burning. One of the men shouted, "Find the girl!" Footsteps thundered behind them. But this time, Lily wasn't running away, she was running toward something. She burst through the back of a bakery and into the street, nearly colliding with 2 uniformed officers. She screamed, "Help!" and held up the flash drive. For a second, they hesitated, then one of them recognized the name on her backpack, Turner. The officer grabbed his radio. "We've got her. Secure the girl." Lily wasn't sure if that meant safety or betrayal. Justice stood growling at her side, not letting anyone get too close. From the rooftop above, a man watched it all through the scope of a rifle. He wasn't aiming, yet. He was waiting, watching. His radio crackled in his ear. "Do we take the shot?" The voice on the other end was cold, emotionless. "Not yet. Let's see who she runs to next." The police cruiser tore down the morning streets, lights flashing, sirens silent. Lily Mae sat in the back seat, gripping the flash drive like it was part of her own heartbeat. Justice rested beside her, bruised and exhausted, but still alert. The officer driving, Sergeant Wilkins, hadn't said much, only that they were taking her to the state attorney's office under emergency protection. But Lily couldn't relax. Not yet. Not until the people who had killed her mother were behind bars. At the government building, cameras were already waiting. The story had exploded. Newspapers, radio, live streams. Judge Raymond Holbrook had resigned within the hour. Earl Donovan had gone into hiding. And others, even more powerful, were suddenly unreachable. But Lily's name was on every headline. Brave girl exposes political corruption. She hated the word brave. She didn't feel brave. She felt broken. Inside, she sat across from a team of prosecutors, her voice calm but cold. She told them everything, about the fire, the box, the documents, the night in the cabin, the tunnel, the recordings. Every name. Every threat. And when they asked why she never told an adult sooner, she looked them in the eye and said, because the adults were the ones doing the lying. No one had an answer to that. Later that evening, she stood outside the courthouse as Cal McBride arrived, limping but alive. The moment they saw each other, Lily ran to him and hugged him like a daughter who hadn't had a father in years. "You did it," he whispered. "You burned down the whole rotten house." Justice barked once beside them, as if claiming his part in the victory. Lily smiled, not a big smile, but one that finally felt real. They watched as armored vans pulled up to City Hall. One by one, the men who had run the county like a private empire were led away in handcuffs, not by armed men in black, but by marshals with badges and full authority. The crowd cheered. Some cried. Some just stood silently. For the first time, justice didn't feel like an idea. It felt like something real. Something earned. Lily turned to Cal, her voice quiet. "Do you think it's over?" Cal looked out over the crowd, the flashing lights, the headlines. Then he looked down at her. "No," he said. "But for once, it's beginning." She knelt beside Justice, stroking his fur gently. We made it, didn't we? Justice didn't bark. He just leaned against her, steady, loyal, and unshakable. Because sometimes, justice isn't a courtroom. Sometimes, justice has 4 legs, and never leaves your side.